Why is it so hard to let go of a relationship even though we know we should? Let's talk a little bit about our logical side versus our emotional side when it comes to breakups. We've all been there. You know intellectually that a relationship needs to end. The evidence is absolutely clear. Maybe you're constantly unhappy, your needs aren't being met, or your values simply don't align. By all objective measures, walking away seemed like the right decision to make, yet we're unable to do that. In this episode of Decoding Attachment Styles, we are discussing why it is so difficult to leave a relationship, even though we know we probably should. Your heart won't cooperate. You find yourself scrolling through old photos at midnight. You replay arguments in your head, wondering if you could have said something differently. You fantasize about the future where things magically work out, even though you know better. This painful disconnect between logic and emotion isn't a sign of weakness. It's a fundamental feature to how human attachment works. And understanding why you can't just move on already is the first step to actually doing it. Let's talk a little bit about the science behind why breakups hurt so much. Your brain is literally addicted. Romantic love activates the same neural pathways as addiction. Studies using MRI scans show that the dopamine system associated with craving and motivation goes into overdrive when you think about your ex or the person you're in love with. The anterior cortex, which processes emotional pain, lights up during breakup distresses, just like physical pain. And withdrawal symptoms, including things like insomnia, anxiety, and obsessive thoughts, these will mirror those of a drug detox. And so this can explain why just get it over or get over with it is terrible advice. It is not that easy to do. What you're doing is you're essentially fighting your own neurochemistry. This is a physical thing that your body's going through. It's not just a thought process that you could just switch your mind off of. Your body is addicted to this person, and you're going to have to go through a detox period that is going to be slow and probably painful, but very possible. Now, you're not just mourning the person, right? You're mourning the potential. Attachment expert Dr. Amir Levine notes that we often grieve relationships more intensely when they are marked by inconsistency. The intermittent reinforcement of occasional good moments amidst the general dissatisfaction creates a powerful psychological trap. This is where the push and pull happens. So you're not clinging to reality. You're clinging to things like the future you imagine together, the version of them you saw in rare, beautiful moments, the hope that they're finally going to become the person that you need or you needed all along. And this is why even toxic relationships can be so hard to quit. The fantasy is often more compelling than the reality ever was. We want to look at 5 psychological barriers to letting go. Let's identify the disintegration. Long-term relationships become part of our self-concept. When they end, we don't just lose the partner, we lose things like our daily routines and shared rituals, our role as this person's partner. The future narrative we built our life around, all those plans and dreams we've had of the future, all of these things we lose. And this creates anxiety that has nothing to do with the actual person and everything to do with our own fear of now an uncertain future. There is also the sunk cost fallacy. What that means is the more time and energy we've invested, the harder it is to walk away, even when the relationship is clearly not working. And this explains why some people stay in relationships that are many years, that's gone on for many years, that should have ended after about 6 months. Or they stay in unhappy marriages for the children. Or we stay in the situationships that we know have got no real future. Our brains just trick us into thinking that the more investment we make, well, it's somehow going to pay off. So we try harder. And when really, in reality, it's just digging the hole even deeper and making it so much harder to get out of the longer we stay in these relationships. There's also the ego's resistance to rejection. Even when you initiated the breakup, rejection still stings because it threatens our fundamental need to feel worthy and lovable. If you're the one who said, this is over, and they agree with it, it activates primal fears of abandonment. And this dates way back to when we were parts of tribes and we might have been kicked out of the tribe. We still have that reptilian brain with us. We want to be a part of a community. We want to belong. We want someone to choose us. It also forces us to confront our own imperfections and mistakes. We feel like if we're not chosen, then something about us needs to be fixed. And we have to look at it, and we don't like that. So this is why no contact rules exist. Every interaction, even a harmless check-in, will reopen the wound. We also want to look at the comfort of familiar pain that keeps us in relationships we know should have ended. You know, there's a saying, the devil you know is safer or better than the devil you don't. So many people will stay stuck because loneliness feels more terrifying than dissatisfaction, or starting over seems so overwhelming. Or they might have normalized dysfunction and don't trust their ability to find somebody better. As relationship expert Esther Perel puts it, the quality of your life is ultimately the quality of your relationships. Staying in a bad one keeps you from discovering what else is possible. And there is so much more out there that is possible. We also want to look at unprocessed grief. Our culture has no real ritual for romantic breakups. So most people will immediately jump into another relationship, which we call the rebound relationship, or they bury themselves in work, or they numb out themselves with substances or shopping. But grief isn't processed, gets stored in the body. And this explains why breakups can often trigger physical symptoms like weight loss or weight gain, insomnia, digestive issues, lower immunity, so you find that you get sicker faster. So what do? How do we actually move forward? Let's talk about a little detox here. Let's go into a phase 1. If you haven't gotten your pen and paper out as yet, I would suggest strongly that you pause this, get your pen and paper, and let's just go through a detox. God forbid that you're going through this process right now. Phase 1, we're going to talk about the clean break. And this is going to be weeks 1 to 4. Digital detox. Detox, archive photos, mute their socials, resist the urge to just check. Do a physical purge. Return their stuff, or you could donate it. Change up your space. Space holds energy. Have an emotional first aid. You want to journal, you want to cry, you want to scream into the pillow. You need to let it out. So in your first phase, you're going to do a digital detox, a physical purge, an emotional first aid. Now, phase 2. Rewiring your brain, weeks 4 to 12. You want to identify the triggers, certain songs, places, time of day. Make new association. If you guys used to grab coffee every morning, switch that up. Start journaling instead. Start to make new associations. Replace the past ones. You also want to rebuild routines. Replace the relationship habits with personal growth activity, as I just mentioned. Instead of, you guys used to grab coffee in the mornings, great. Now we're doing something for your personal growth. You're going to either go out for a walk and exercise, meditate, journal, something that's going to benefit you. You are the focus during this time of breakup. Social restocking. A lot of times in relationships, we give up our friends, we give up ourselves in friendships. So now is a time to reconnect with your friends who remind you of who you are outside of the relationship. You'll start to realize that the way you were in a relationship wasn't exactly who you truly are. Because when you're in an unhappy relationship, one of the things that we do is we contort ourselves to make that other person happy and that other person feel safe. And everything is about that other person. Now, when you're with people who make you feel more like you could be yourself, you could talk and laugh and say whatever you want, and you're not judged or criticized, then you start to see the difference between who you really are and who you were in that relationship. You start to build confidence. So reconnect with friends who remind you of who you are. Also, pay attention to those friends. If they're also making you feel judged and criticized, perhaps they're not your friends, but that's for another topic. We'll talk about that in another podcast. Let's move on to phase 3. Creating a new narrative. This is month 3 and beyond. And you get to write the story of your life. You get to say, no, or no, it's not that I lost my person. What you can say is, I survived something difficult and I grew. You also want to identify the lessons. What will you do differently the next time? What red flags will you watch out for and walk away from the next time you see it on the first date? You want to reinvest in yourself, pursue goals you may have neglected during the relationship. Create the life that you want. One of the best exercises you can do every day is wake up and ask yourself, who would I want to be when I'm 90 years old? And what is it I need to do now to make sure that I am that person at 90 years old? Now, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. Healing isn't linear. You need to remember that so you could be gentle with yourself on those days when you don't feel that great. You're going to have that one random memory that will sucker punch you, and it's normal. You want to be prepared for it and be gentle with yourself. Some days you're going to feel great. Some days you won't, and that's all right. You're going to get back to the great days. Just keep moving forward. The turning point is going to come when you realize, oh, I don't think about them as much as I used to. Or, yeah, those memories don't hurt as much as they used to. And you can start to imagine a future without them. And it's going to feel okay. If you're going through this difficult time now, my heart is with you. I can appreciate what you're going through. It is not easy. It's a tough spot you're in, but I know you can get through this. And one day you're going to realize that craving them, it's gone. Not because you got over it, but because you grew around the grief. And that's when you're going to know that you didn't lose love. You're making space for it. You're making space for love for yourself and for someone else. Until the next episode. I'm Annalisa Bahadur.